with CROs.
I do agree completely. I think, Mani, to add to that and to the comment that came, I think the immediate situation that we are faced with is certainly a big cutback from Big Pharma on their R&D spends. And one of the first areas that they will initially at least look to cut out is all their external R&D spend, because that's easier for them to cut than internal spends, which tend to take a little bit longer. But I think this is a cycle, and over a period of time, next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, we can't tell. But somewhere in the near future, I think the cycle will turn, and they'll come back to saying, all right, we'll have to start resourcing our R&D again, and we'll go out with, and it's a cheaper place to do it than internally. So I think this cycle right now we're seeing at a downturn is going to pick up. On the other hand, I think if between now and 2015 is when most of the big pharma patent expiries take place, and which is when they have their most cost pressures. During this time, if they underinvest in early phase R&D, I think there'll certainly be, as Mani pointed out, a big market for early stage assets maybe around 2014-15, by which time they may not have done a whole lot internally. So this certainly throws up opportunities, but it's not without challenges, because in India, you don't have clusters like Boston or a San Diego from where you can source a whole lot of innovation. So it's one thing to say that we should create assets, but what targets would we go after? It is hard enough to tell what Pfizer needs 6 months from now. Imagining what they'll need 3 years hence, and then picking on those targets certainly needs tremendous depth in science, which I think is a gap that we need to quickly fill in innovative ways. Second thing is, there's also a fairly deep pocket I think we will have to count on to make this work, because picking any one target and hoping it will fly is not going to make the cut. So picking on a basket of opportunities in the right space, and then hoping that we'll mature these assets at the right point in time when Big Pharma or Mid Pharma is going to look for in-licensing opportunities is going to be critical. So I think companies that can learn how to do this in a fashion that does not kill them in the process and does not also affect the rest of their fee-earning business are going to probably use this downturn, so to speak, as an opportunity. And I repeatedly have been saying that there is a challenge at this point in time. I think everybody in the industry is certainly facing it. It's not just the China competition, which is much larger than life, but also the fact that pharma R&D is shrinking does not leave a number of dollars open for Indian companies to go after in the traditional outsourcing business. So finding that happy mix is not going to be easy, but if we can think innovatively in terms of what else we can do to move up the value chain, I think we'll certainly have an opportunity to ride out this next couple of years and use this as an opportunity to come back big time in a much higher value added area, which is to license out assets that we were able to create in the next couple of years. I think that's the challenge that we certainly have, and we'll have to overcome.
I'm extremely bullish about India's ability to drive innovation. And I share the thoughts and comments that my fellow panelists have made, with one exception. And that's where, we need to apply more mind as to how we get there. Essentially, a CRO's business structure is very different from a biotech's. The funding, risk capital that comes into these two types of entities and what their exit mechanisms are really very different. And it is, I think, one has to be very cautious if you are running a CRO to what extent you move on that, on that lane of doing innovation on your own nickel. And that's where I think some of the problems that we face have happened. I think most of our companies have been around for 10 years or so. So I think we do have people with knowledge, capabilities, and through assimilation in the past, part of all the work we have done in the past, I think we do have specialists who are able to do a part of the drug discovery process. And as one would expect, that's the part of drug discovery that is being outsourced to India, which is basically starting from a target, a named target, a validated target, and getting up to, let's say, a preclinical candidate. So the skill sets that you need here, I think, are quite well developed in India, and we are able to move things faster. And obviously, we offer a very good economy for getting to that point. So, but if you are licensing out at that stage, you are really not making much. It's licensing value comes when you actually have demonstrated some clinical proof of concept. So on one hand, CROs are doing this. On the other hand, we are really missing out the upside that biotechs have. And so one has to be careful how we structure these. Increasingly, because of pharma's budget pressures, these types of integrated programs that we work, they want a lot more of risk sharing coming from the CRO. Fundamentally, that's a good thing because, if you have skin in the game, you're pulling together, you're more motivated, you have, upside possibilities in terms of milestones. But the problem is that, most of our CROs, and I think Mani made the point that we need to get more competent in the target area, or the early biology area. But as far as I know, we are not quite there when it comes to choosing new targets, working on certain targets. So there is a pitfall there if we get too far carried away by this notion that we can do early discovery. We may be taking risks that our business model doesn't permit us to take. Also, I think the point that Mani brought out about the academic collaborations, that's one way that pharma industry is looking at, perhaps looking at new targets or pathways and mechanisms within certain types of therapeutic targets, and some initial work that may have been done in these academic settings. I think, while it's going to be difficult to stitch this together, I have seen some examples of where they have been. If you have a, academic collaborator who has strong, academic programs in new therapeutic areas, if you have a CRO that's really working on driving the process forward efficiently and quickly and in less cost. And if you have a translation center like a biomedical center that supports that innovation, and a pharma company that is committed enough at least to say that we are going to fund some part of these programs. So if you can put this together, or failing that, if a pharma company doesn't want to come in, maybe a venture capital firm comes in. You need to have different kinds of capabilities that various people bring. You have to bring different business models, and you have to bring different fund places where the funds can come from. It makes it a very complex undertaking, but that might be the ideal way where CROs can participate, rather than CRO taking a role of, okay, I'm going to deliver a molecule that's either preclinical development or with clinical development in the kind of business structure and funding process we have. And one last point I'd like to make is, we were talking a little bit about how the IT industry outsourcing has happened in this country. And that has been a success story that nobody would deny. One thing that I find very difficult very different from what IT does and what CRO does in the drug discovery development, is that we have to invest on people with much higher skills, much higher education. We have expensive infrastructures that are needed. We use up a lot of utilities, electricity, water, etc. So in a way, you would expect that the value of what we provide to our clients and our partners would at least reciprocate those inputs that get in. And unfortunately, we have not got the kind of margin structure even in place that allows us to take some of those, profits, let's say, and put it into incubating programs, etc. So that's a big disadvantage we play on. And of course, we also have, at this stage at least, contracts that our clients can terminate with 1 or 2 months' notice. And therefore, there is a tide of, I bring in a new point, I guess, but somehow if the CROs are supposed to be having this role of doing early stage drug discovery, I don't think the business models are there. I don't think we have the margin structure in place. But I do think that in the right makeup of a consortium, we can add significant value in innovation.
Okay.
And sat across the desk many times when we were considering projects that we would outsource either completely or parts thereof.